Welcome to Gluten Free Unwrapped, the podcast that takes you inside the stories of the founders, CEOs, and influencers who make the gluten-free industry tick. Whether you're living a gluten-free lifestyle, building a brand, or just love a behind-the-scenes look at how your favorite products came to be, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Jenny Fink, and this is Gluten Free Unwrapped. Today on Gluten Free Unwrapped, I'm thrilled to welcome Jereann Zann, the inspiring founder of Little GF Chefs, a brand on a mission to empower kids with food allergies and celiac disease through fun, hands-on baking experiences. Jereann's journey began with her daughter, Sophia, who was diagnosed with gluten and dairy allergies at a young age. Like so many children with dietary restrictions, Sophia experienced food fear and anxiety. To help her daughter build confidence and a positive relationship with food, Jereann created Little GF Chefs, a line of inclusive baking kits and baking mixes designed to bring joy, creativity, and empowerment back to the kitchen. Today, we get to hear the story behind this emerging brand and talk with the mom who started it all. So, Jereann, welcome to Gluten Free Unwrapped.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. You've been a big part of my journey. We've been friends for several years now. And love being able to tell your story today and how you started this amazing subscription box baking mix company. And we're going to get into all of that in a bit. But I want to have you take us back to sort of the early days. You know, what was going on in your life when your daughter was diagnosed with these food allergies? If you could share a little bit more about that story with us and kind of set the stage for why you started this business in the first place.
Yes. So it's kind of a long story, but I'll try to be brief. It always is, right? So when Sophia, I guess what was going on was I was a new mother. From the time that she was an infant, we knew something was wrong and we didn't know what. And it took us really until she was about 7 months old to get ourselves to the proper pediatric gastroenterologist, who at that point actually diagnosed her, I think it was 10 different food allergies at the time. Everything was making her sick. Immature digestive system. They didn't necessarily know why at the time, but that's where it started in terms of then me as her mom and her main food source at the moment needed to really change my entire diet, my entire life to make sure that she was getting the nutrients that she needed. So fast forward that until actually she was 2.5. That's when we got the celiac diagnosis, which was crazy for it to have taken that long and to be with professionals that, really should have been able to diagnose it much sooner. But they missed it. And, it is what it is at this point. We did get the information. But at that point, by the time she was 2.5, she was so sick. She was so thin and so sick and bloated and not feeling well and all of that, we actually got to a level where we went to the doctor and they said, as soon as we walked in the door, they said, "Oh my goodness, I think she has celiac disease." Just by looking at her, she had gotten so sick under their care that the symptoms were so bad that was the initial thought. And of course, my first thought is, "I'm sorry, what's that? What is celiac disease?" Like so many of us, we went through the testing, we found out that's what it was, and then I have to tell you that 6 months later, things like eggs and soy and tree nuts and things that she could not process, she could. So the dairy stuck. The dairy didn't go away, but the rest of it did over time, not right away. And she became much healthier. And it was a blessing to finally know what was the matter so that we could help her on her journey to get well.
Wow. Was there any celiac in your family, or this was just like completely out of nowhere?
So I do have a half niece who has celiac disease. We always thought it came from her mom's side of the family, the other part of the family, not my brother's. But I guess that wasn't true.
Yeah. It's always hard when these kids at such a young age are diagnosed with all these food restrictions. It's one thing as an adult, like you've experienced things, you have more control over your food and your life. But when you're a kid, it's a little unnerving and hard. So I imagine as a mom, that was really hard for you. Did it change your relationship with food too, as a mom, as a family?
I mean, it did. It did definitely. When a child has a food allergy or celiac disease, it's very different than when an adult has, for my perspective anyway, because they're, whether they're an infant or a toddler or a teenager, whatever it is, they're in the home and you're generally the one providing food. So it becomes something that really affects the lifestyle of the whole family, from within the house, whether you choose to have a dedicated kitchen or you choose to have a shared environment, when you're traveling, when you're going to socialize with people at events. As you know, I mean, it takes over everything. And for me and my husband, we knew there were going to be a lot of times that Sophia felt like she was left out, and we did not want her to feel that way with us. That's not the right choice for everybody, and that's perfectly okay for everybody to do whatever works for them. But for us and me, I was not going to, go to a party with her and be eating the gluten and eating the dairy and things that were she's staring and wishing she could have it. So initially, I had no choice as a nursing mother. I had to take all of those things out, and then it just stuck. And later, I had a son and tried, and at that point, I could no longer tolerate gluten whatsoever. So it's been gluten and dairy free for me 10 years.
Oh, wow. So you also lost your tolerance to gluten in that time. So you probably have some sort of gluten or wheat allergy or intolerance yourself. Fascinating. Oh, my goodness. So I know you from your blogging days. Like, you have a blog called Celiac Mama. Now, was Sophia sort of the inspiration behind that blog? Were you creating recipes? How did that all start?
Absolutely. So for me, as a young mother, trying to figure out, when we got the diagnosis of celiac disease, sometimes you get the instructions to say, okay, go be gluten free. Well, what does that mean?
Right.
What food has gluten in it? I mean, it's the obvious ones that you would think of, but then there's things like with a toddler, like Play-Doh or finger paint or even bubble bath and things like that, where what toddler isn't putting everything in their sight inside of their mouth? So the amount of education and that I had to learn, from researching and to educating myself in this amazing gluten-free community that's online, thank goodness, was huge. And so I felt like if there was something I could do from a cathartic perspective for me to help other families kind of get up to speed faster post-diagnosis, I was going to do that. And so, yes, we definitely put recipes on Celiac Mama, but it started off more as a parenting resource for folks that were going through the same thing, whether it was school resources, how to have either a dedicated kitchen at home or a shared kitchen at home, travel, lifestyle tips, things like that. And then, of course, recipes, so that we could sort of tackle all of the things that we thought people might really need.
Yeah. So you were really building a community of people dealing with celiac disease and food allergies. And that probably started shortly after, I imagine, she was diagnosed, like you were saying, around 2.5 or something. So you were probably doing that for a few years before you had this idea for what is known as Little GF Chefs today. So how long did it take you from going from this blog and this community you're building to actually starting this business? What was that aha moment that kind of led you to this new chapter of your life?
Okay, that's a great question. So I started blogging. I think I blogged for 2.5 years, maybe three, before I launched Little GF Chefs. And during that time, I think as being part of the demographic has always helped me connect with our whether it was people reading the blog or now customers, because I'm walking that line, I'm living that life. And I noticed that as Sophia was getting older, that it wasn't just about the food anymore. People talk about how, oh, do you have a food allergy? Oh, you have celiac disease. Just don't eat that food. Well, it's not that simple, especially, and I'm not even talking about cross contact. I'm talking about, now you have a little person that is trying to develop self-confidence, and how do 3 and 4 year olds get to know each other when they can't talk that well? Hey, you want to share a snack? Oh, you want to go to the birthday party and do this? Oh, we're going to learn to count in class today. And instead of using buttons like maybe we did when we were kids, now they're using food and pastas and this and that. And so I started to notice that she felt different, but not like as adults, how we learn to appreciate each other's differences. She felt different and less than. Like there was something wrong with her. And that was heartbreaking. And so, of course, there was a lot of discussion and things. What can we do to make this better? But what I noticed is, and when I got her into the kitchen, and we would start, getting messy and baking together and being silly and, no rules, just have fun. That helped her the most. I noticed the confidence was building. I noticed that she was developing a positive relationship with food, that she was learning that she didn't have to live without. Maybe we had to have to make it at home, depending on what it is, but she could still have it. We could still do things. And it helped her so much that she's actually the one that said to me, and this is her at 5 years old, she goes, "Hey, mommy, if this is helping me so much, don't you think it would help other people like me?"
Oh,
That's
that's
how it
so sweet.
happened.
She's like,
And
she gave you that aha moment, like right
she
then and
did,
there.
100%. And I said, huh, yeah, honey, I do. But, we all have this imposter syndrome and whatnot. So for about 9 months, and so to give you a short piece of background, before I moved into Little GF Chefs, I was a marketing executive. I owned a marketing agency. We did digital marketing, brand development. That was my background. So immediately I was like, great, I'll make a logo, no problem. And then I sat on it for 9 months because I was afraid. I thought, well, just
Yeah.
because we think it's a good idea doesn't mean it is a good idea. How do you know? And then in January of 2019, that's when we just decided to go for it with a Facebook post. And I remember being like, 1, 2, 3, and I made myself hit the button. And boy, it's been an awesome journey.
Wow. Okay, well, tell us what Little GF Chefs is and what you first started out as. That I think people may not realize what your baking kits were like.
Mm-hmm. So Little GF Chefs, it's a children's baking company where we make baking kits and baking mixes. And the idea is to create these super fun, unique baking experiences for families. The idea was, yes, of course, we want to make something that's delicious and fun to make, but because of our history and seeing how self-confidence and food anxieties and fears and things like that that really are rooted in real things that make sense, was something that was a front of mind for me and our family. I wanted them to not be the kind of baking kit or mix that you get and you just add water.
Mm,
Those are amazing and those have a place, no question, from a convenience perspective, and many of them are amazingly delicious. But I wanted the kids to be in there and have that experience and not have it take 2 minutes, so that they were creating that memory, creating that connection with food, and helping the mental health side. Maybe it's not as fun to talk about that, right? But it was doing that at the same time as creating something that was super delicious and over the top.
yeah.
So,
These are really creative kits. Over the years, I've gotten to try a few of them, like the animal cookie crackers,
mhm.
and they come with the actual cookie cutters. It comes with the different sprinkles you might need, frosting. It comes with all the tools that you need to make that specific baking mix. Even like I know the donuts even comes with like a silicone donut pan. Yeah.
We're trying to make it easy for families. If it's something obvious that they would have at home, that's one thing. But a lot of people don't have a donut pan, or
Yeah.
they don't have a cookie cutter for a specific thing, and so that, or piping bags even. So the idea is, I think we even have one. We have one spider web cupcakes one where we even include a toothpick. I mean, anything that we think they just might not have at home that would be annoying to have to go get, we try to put it in the box.
Yeah, so everything's in this box and it just allows your child to be creative and it's very easy to follow along the instructions and really easy to build like even a gingerbread house with the instructions and the tools that are in this kit. So that is so exciting. So were you always a passionate baker, home baker, or obviously you're not a trained chef. You're a mom on a mission. And I was just curious, like what the role of baking in your life has been like, and how do you come up with these recipes since you're not a trained chef?
So baking has always been something that I enjoyed since I was a little girl with my grandmother, actually, and then my mom as well. Um, so as a child, I baked a lot. We did a lot of those things. As a young adult, I baked never, because when I was in college and it was like, can I have a thing of ramen or whatever is easy to go? That kind of became life. But I think that once your circumstances change, you rise. You don't really have a choice in that regard. When I knew that, it actually started for me before we got any diagnoses, when they started to tell me when I was pregnant, you're allowed to eat these things, you're not allowed to eat these things are healthy. When I started to look at labels, I started to think, huh. So I remember, I never ever purchased a jar of baby food. It was something that I pureed and made from scratch myself the whole way through. So before we even started to get any of those. So there was definitely a passion for me in the kitchen. And then with my daughter, it was really about how do I nourish her and being determined to do that and figure out whatever it took. And then as she got older, how do I nourish her and help her feel included? So I don't know, it just became second nature for me.
Yeah.
And
Well, I mean,
sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that the recipes are really well done and really well tested because obviously you're giving these to kids to make and they have to be pretty foolproof. Can you tell us about the first kit that you made? Like what started the whole journey?
Yes. So the first kit was unicorn donuts, and that was on purpose. Um, Sophia and I had been at a birthday party, and I don't know if you have noticed this, but I don't mean to sound old or age myself, but when I was a kid, you went to a birthday party and there was a cake or cupcakes. Now you go to a birthday party, and oftentimes I feel like it's a miniature wedding in the sense that there is tables of all of these different desserts. You see cake, you see cake pops, you see brownies, you see marshmallows, you see, I don't know, it goes on and on and on, donuts. And you want to bring something so that, your kid can participate. And I always ask the mom, what are you making and all this stuff. And I went to one of these parties where they had so many things. And there was one thing I didn't, or a few things, one thing in particular, Sophia was just like drooling, staring at, and it was a plate of donuts. Now I tell you in that moment, I had no idea how to make a donut, no idea. But looking at her and what I started to call, the birthday party hangover, not the hangover like adults might talk about, but the blues after you've left and you've seen like all the kids getting all these things. And, even though you have something, it's not the same. Instead of going home, I looked at her face and we actually drove to the grocery store and she's like, what are we doing? I was like, we're going to make donuts. How? I don't know. So I started going through the grocery store and pulling up, ingredients and whatnot. We went home, we tested, we had a crazy time. I turned the blues into this totally happy moment. And that's when I knew that was going to be the first kit. When we looked back and we knew we were going to do it, I looked back and I said, well, it has to be donuts and it has to be unicorn and colorful and rainbows and all the things that make a regular donut seem extra spectacular.
Oh
So
my gosh. Okay, so that's your first kit. And I've tried that kit. That's really a fun kit. All right, so you have this idea, you've been putting this recipe together, creating these kits, sourcing ingredients and sourcing products for the kit. And then how did you go launch it? I mean, you obviously had a little bit of a community from your blogging years. Tell me a little bit more about how you actually launched.
So it was very much through the celiac mama community. I shared the information. They could not have been more supportive and sharing it. It was unbelievable. I want to say in 12 hours, I think the initial post I did reach 19,000 people. And I thought, oh my gosh, what just happened? Like, this is me being too afraid to hit the send button or the post button to then seeing that. And I still very much am running a marketing agency. So I did it very part-time. That's what I had to do. I had 40 subscribers and I left it at that. And I would create the kit. And by the way, that first year I was coming up with them, every month. I did not, and you asked about recipe testing before. I mean, the recipe testing process is massive. It's not okay if I make it once or twice or three times and it's good. I want it to be great. I need to, keep refining it. And then once we get through that, we go and we want it to be kid tested and make sure watching them, is it easy? Is it hard? Do you like this part? Do you not like that part? It's a massive undertaking. So keeping it at the 40 in that first year was really important as I learned what I was doing. Because, I mean, as I'm sure you've learned, just the shipping and the operations side of something like that and the customer management system, that was very different. That was very new. And I wanted to do it well as opposed to do it in excess, not well. Does that make
So
sense?
your first year you had 40 subscribers and you just left it at that. You didn't add new ones every month.
Well, I guess we did. By the end of let me say, the first 3 months intentionally it was like, no, we just
Yeah.
couldn't. But by the end of the year, once we got close to the holidays, yes, you're absolutely right. We were significantly more than that. And it was actually at the holidays that initially we were just doing a monthly subscription, 1 month at a time. We got closer to the holidays and people said, but what if I want to put multiple things under the tree? I want to buy a subscription, but I also want to have stuff now. And that's when I thought, oh, for me, the whole process has really been learning by listening to our customers and seeing what else they need. So at that time, we started bringing and putting other kits on sale as one time. So now we have subscriber and one time sales. If you want to subscribe, great. If you would rather just buy the kit that you want or the 5 kits that you want at the same time, that's perfectly fine too. So that stretched us in that area. And then a year and a half ago, maybe, that's when we started getting but I want to make it again. And I already
Mhm.
have the donut pan. How do I make it again? Can I get the mix? And we thought, oh, well, sure. Yes, you can. And so then we grew the mix side.
That makes sense. They don't need another donut pan, but they need the other ingredients to make it. So you can kind of have it as a lower cost option, like refills, I guess, right?
Exactly.
Amazing. Okay. So it's very stressful because you're having to come. Did you have like several kits lined up and recipes developed, or were you sort of making them on the fly every month in order to fill that subscription every month?
So I had several. The answer to that is yes and no, because at Celiac Mama, I mean, I had been baking every single day for years for my daughter or her classmates, or then later my son who cannot have gluten either. And so I had recipes, but right before, and I should have said this before, right before I launched, I had some of our readers reach out who I had mentioned that I was doing this, and she said, well, my child has celiac disease, but they have a nut allergy too. This one has a tree nut, another one said they had a peanut. And I thought to myself, right before lunch, I was ready to go with many, many recipes. And then I thought, how am I going to launch something with the purpose of being inclusive when I know that these kids with these other food allergies are going through the same thing? I couldn't do it. My heart, I was like, I just can't. So at that last minute moment, I made my life extra stressful by stripping out all of the other top 9 allergens. And so there was recipe bases that I had for my own baking experience, but if I had almond milk in it or almond flour in it or things like that, I had to mess with them until I got them to be totally top 9 allergen free. So I wasn't starting from scratch, but uh, you know, I, everything wasn't completely ready. Does that make
Wow.
sense?
That makes sense. And so tell me a little bit about these certifications that you have because you're top 9 allergen free, you're certified gluten free. Tell me what you have and why these are important to you.
So we've always been a facility that's been dedicated to allergen free and gluten free and vegan and artificial dye free, all of those things. And when I source from places that do not use shared equipment, do not have shared line, or excuse me, they don't have shared lines. And for a little while, we felt like that was enough for people to feel comfortable. But then I said, okay, we're more professional now. We're a couple of years into it. We can afford to get certifications. We can have that higher level of auditing. We have more of the people. It wasn't just me anymore. And so we did pursue a gluten-free certification. So we're gluten-free certified. And then this past year, we said, well, what about the certified free from, which is a top 9 allergen-free certification. It's ISO accredited. It's internationally recognized. It's amazing. It's very hard to get. But we did pursue that, and CFF is done through Manutrinfo. And for that one, I guess it was the second half of last year that we got it. And we're just super proud to be able to have that level of transparency so that folks can see these are our practices. But in addition, let's give you some names that you know and you trust that have certified us to make you feel more comfortable because it's all about food safety.
Right. And I think some people just have to see that certification. And it's not always necessary, but it is something that people really like to see. And has it helped you? Do you think people have trusted you more? Has it changed your business at all, or to be determined?
I think it has. I think that there are definitely some people that feel more comfortable and they feel happy seeing it. I think as we've expanded into the retail landscape, they really want to see certifications too. So I think it's helped there as well. At the end of the day, it's hard when you have a food allergy or celiac disease and you want to feel trust when you're buying a product that you're going to be safe and be able to enjoy it. And and that's what the certifications help reassure people of. And also, make sure that everything is going right in
Right.
the
That makes sense. And okay, so you brought up retail, which is, I think, a really exciting chapter in your business because I've seen your gingerbread baking kits at Sprouts during the holidays, and it sounds like you might also have some other kits in retail. So I want you to tell me a little bit about how your retail partnerships have come about and what you're doing in that arena.
So if I told you how it started, you wouldn't believe me. Um, so everything started, it sounds silly, everything started on an e-com site. It was our website, right? And the very first retailer that we worked with actually filled out a contact form on our website. And I thought, what is this? Is this spam? Like, this can't
Yeah.
be real. And I remember following up and being like, oh, oh my goodness. Yes, like this is amazing. And it was Uncommon Goods actually. And so we started, a little bit in retail. We would do smaller scale things on the e-com side, had the best relationship. Absolutely can't, we still work with Uncommon Goods, can't say enough positive things about them. That rolled into Macy's and Bloomingdale's and recently Gluten Free Palace. And at that point, I started to think, well, okay, let's think about this. If retailers are potentially interested, and the whole mission is to empower kids, and how can I empower the most kids and have the most accessibility? Because most people don't know who we are still as little GF chefs, and that's just the truth. So your local grocery store, your local retailers. So the thought was, if we can expand that way and get the product to more people to include more kids, then that is a fulfillment of our mission. And so we started, that's where it started. I don't think I answered the question as smoothly as I probably should have, but it started with a contact form that then made us think, perhaps we should be talking to retailers. We went to some retail shows to see what it was about and started just making phone calls.
Wow. And I guess the one I know about is the Sprouts and the gingerbread house because that's the one I physically have seen in stores. What other kits are in stores? Are you expanding? Is that a big part of your business or is the e-commerce really your bread and butter?
So we are it. Okay, that was several questions. Let's see. So e-com about half and half. We do e-com half and retail half. So that's where we are at this point. From a Sprouts perspective, we're in there for holiday. We're going to be there again this year. We're going to have two items there. We're very excited about this, and it's going to be national again. We're going to be in Hy-Vee supermarkets. Again, that is a Midwestern chain. Anybody that lives in that area knows exactly who I'm talking about. There are about 9 states. And so we'll be back there again, and they'll have our gingerbread. They're also going to have our Christmas cookies kit, which is something that you may have seen on the e-com side of things. And then in terms of non-holiday, uh, all of our e-com partners, whether it's Uncommon Goods or Macy's or Bloomingdale's, Gluten Free Palace, they all have many of our kits throughout the year. So and
So
then the
they're kind
rest
of
is,
rotating, which makes sense because a lot of your kits are seasonal. You'll have a kit for Easter or Christmas and different holidays, Halloween, things like that.
yes.
Oh, that's
Oh, and I
amazing.
forgot to mention Amazon. We did launch on Amazon last November for the first time ever, so we do have kits there as well. And I can't spoil anything, but you may be seeing us in more than seasonal, maybe starting with back to school in some brick and mortar retail. So
Amazing. And you're coming out with some baking mixes too, just
we do.
without the kits.
Yes, we have a whole line. Gosh, anything that you've seen us make in a baking kit, we have the mix. So think, oh goodness, breadsticks, bagels, pizza, donuts, sugar cookie, chocolate cake, vanilla cake. Oh goodness, I could go on and on. Pumpkin spice donut mix. We have a bunch of different things. Biscuit mix, which is I love that one. That's my husband's favorite. But yes, because we wanted to be able to offer something on a smaller scale that is less expensive, that allows people to stock their pantry. So anytime they want to bake, they can.
Yeah. And I could see more of the adults wanting hey, I want to make breadsticks, but I don't need the whole kit. I'm not a kid or whatever. So that makes sense. Is there a kit that you're most proud of having developed?
Probably the gingerbread house kit, I would say. It's hard because I feel a love for each one. Like we put so much into it, the thoughtfulness of either what we're hearing from people they're really missing out on, or just our own life experiences and seeing what that is. But the gingerbread house kit there's something very whimsical about it to me. The arts and crafts side of things, the family tradition, being able to do something together and then being able to enjoy it and eat it. I think that the holidays are the time that we most realize that we can't eat the foods that other people can eat. It's a part of our daily life, but it hits harder at the holidays. And when you combine that with a lovely tradition of making gingerbread at home, maybe since there's nostalgia for me since I was a kid, to be able to do that and bring that, and then to know that people are going to be able to walk into stores and say, Mom, Dad, or Grandma, Grandpa, whomever, I can eat that. That's okay for me. And to be able to grab that on the store is everything. I mean, that's just everything.
I'm gonna say we tried the gingerbread house. Maybe was it a couple of years ago when you first came out with it? My daughter and I, and she's a teenager at the time. We had so much fun. It's not just for little kids. We laughed so hard, and we messed things up. Our house was the house stood up, but we decorated it so poorly, and so we were so bad. But it was such a good time. So I think what you're really offering isn't just this delicious, amazing baking project, but also like fun and memories. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
So tell me a little bit more about some of the hardest aspects of scaling your business. You started just doing the subscription and now you're in retail. What have been some of the challenges of getting to this point?
I would say, gosh, there's a lot, right? I think as you're growing, right? There's always something, it seems like. But I would say the two things that have been the biggest challenges. One is the rising prices of ingredients, whether it was due to supply chain issues years ago or seeing the shipping prices go up and having to try to find a way to keep the quality. I mean, the quality of the product is staying the same, but to not raise prices when the prices are being raised on you. That's been very hard. So we've been mindful about that. And, there are times that we've had to have an increase for shipping or something like that because we've really had no choice, as we still subsidize some of it, even with the costs. So that's definitely a challenge that's sort of always there, but we do our very best to not pass that on to customers because we don't want that. We don't want to have a $50 item, that makes it
Right.
impossible for some families. So that's one. And two, it's the fact that I own the business. My husband, my family, we own the business, and to scale, you need capital, and we haven't done fundraising like that. So it's been definitely tricky and figuring out how to grow very lean and not having a huge staff, and to do things affordably. One, to keep it at the price point, but also because, as an example, we every year we grow, right? Every year our retail orders grow, thankfully, and hopefully we'll continue to do so. But every time they grow, so does the amount of supplies that we have to purchase. And you don't actually fulfill those orders, sometimes for 3 months, sometimes for 6 months. So that need to balance and figure out cash flow and how to do that while scaling is tricky. It's
It's
still
very
something that
tricky. I don't think people realize that, like you have to to put your baking kits on the shelf at retail grocery stores across the country. That is a huge capital outlay up front, and it's not always easy to fund yourself.
it's not. It's not. Yeah.
Was there a moment on this journey where you're like, I don't know, this is scary. Is this going to work? I don't know if I want to do this.
Um, Definitely. I think there have probably been many moments that have been scary. Every time we grow, there's a fear. is it going to work? Are people still going to like us? Is it going to meet the masses? Are we going to be able to do this large of an order? We've never done something this large. There's always, at least for me, some level of imposter syndrome that just keeps following on the
Yes.
journey. It's quieter a little bit, but it's still there. So I would say definitely. And I think probably the scariest, but also most exciting was when we first had our gingerbread houses on the shelves at Sprouts, because that was a national account. And to know that so many eyes were going to be on it, which is exactly what you want, was also frightening. I mean, how's it going to do? When we had sell through, like total sell through, the way that we did, we were elated. But for months before, you don't know that it's going to work out that well. So,
Right. You like hold your breath. Is this going to work? Did
absolutely.
I feel that. I definitely feel that. All right. So obviously, when did you start GF Chefs? Did I ask you what year
It
that
was
was?
2019. So this is our sixth
2019. So you've been at this for 6 years and you have still young kids at home who have food allergies. That takes a lot out of you too. It takes a lot of work. How do you avoid, burnout? What are some things that you do to unwind, to stop thinking about the business and just be?
Uh, I think I have a great team that when I need a break, I get a break. And probably the thing that takes me out of it the most is spending time with my family. When they're little and they have, something adorable, like I was at Spring Sing yesterday at school and watching little kids try to learn how to play the ukulele, like things like that. You can't be stressed anymore in those moments. If you're feeling burnout, if you're feeling down, those kinds of things always bring you back up. So taking the time out to balance that and have some fun with family or sometimes with girlfriends and things like that, it really reinvigorates me.
Yeah, I bet. We all need.
Oh, the customer emails, right? I mean, when they tell you how much you're making a difference in their child's life and they're writing and saying they're crying happy tears as they're writing the message, I mean, that's the why. That's why we do it.
Right.
We know that they need us. So,
People may not realize it. I experience this too, is that the products that you're creating really mean so much to our community because we have been overlooked. We have been left out as people with celiac, gluten intolerance, food allergies. We are not the mainstream. We are the fringes, and not a lot of brands cater to us. So something like getting a baking kit in the mail just is like, wow, it like something for me that I can do and have fun doing and feel normal again. It's just such a nice feeling for us as business owners. Are you up for some rapid fire questions?
I think so.
You think so?
I'll try.
All right, awesome. So just whatever comes to mind here. What's your proudest moment as an entrepreneur?
Seeing our gingerbread kits on the shelves nationally.
Favorite gluten-free treat to bake?
I guess donuts.
Yeah, the one that started it all, right? Best advice for moms with kids who are new to the food allergy world?
Breathe, take a deep breath. This is a lot. Um, do your research. You're going to learn things, and then you're going to advocate for your child, and your child is going to be okay because they have you as an ally. You can do this.
Can do
It gets
this.
easier.
One thing you wish you were better at?
Multitasking, doing all the things, right? Time management so that I could, do even more during the day, I would say. But I think we're ever evolving, right? I mean, for me, I'm learning and there's nothing in my life that I can't improve upon. So
Right. Best reaction from a customer?
the emails, the lengthy emails about the details of where they were and what they saw and their family and the difference it's made, the happy tears, it's everything.
Yeah, I love reading those emails. And I imagine you have someone doing your customer service, but it's nice when they
I
share those with you.
actually I try to pop in as much as possible and review them because it's important for me to know where the customers are,
Right.
the good, the bad, all of it, right?
Amazing. What is one thing people would be surprised to know about you?
I trained in opera and singing when I
No
was,
way.
yes, yeah. Nobody knows that.
She can sing while she bakes. I love it. All right. And my last question is something that we ask all our guests. Name another gluten-free brand that you really admire and why.
I love Siete. I love them. I have known them. I first met them when they were really just starting out years ago, and the family friendliness and the small business feel that they've continued to make um, people feel about their products, I think is amazing. Anytime they've launched products or had new things, they would send me handwritten letters in the mail about what it meant to them. I just think that they've always had their values right, and the food quality is fantastic.
All right. I love that brand too. And yeah, I think they were just bought by a big company. So
It could not have happened to a nicer family, I have to tell you.
thank you so much, Jereann, for joining me today. You survived the rapid fire and the interview. But before we go, can you share how our listeners can keep in touch with you?
Yes, you can find us on Instagram or at Little GF Chefs. Same thing on Facebook. Um, you can find us on our website. It's www.littlegfchefs.com. And you can contact us right there. We would love to hear from you. And
Yeah.
oh, we're on TikTok too. I forget that.
Yeah.
I know I'm a little, beyond the TikTok generation. I'm trying to really hone my skills there, but I have help.
I love that. And you made me think of when you brought up TikTok, you made me think of your daughter. And I imagine, is she involved in the business today? I would be remiss if I didn't ask that.
She is, I should say, she is our chief inspiration officer. She's very much a part of the company. She has an official role. She and my son is our chief taste tester. She loves to perform and sing and do all of that. So to be able to get on camera, and she does some of our reels herself and shows people how to bake and do things like that is both, I think, empowering for her and so much fun. And she's super cute.
Oh, that's adorable. Well, this is definitely a family affair, and you are helping so many people, so many families dealing with food allergies, feel normal again and build that positive relationship with food. And that's such a beautiful thing. So thank you again for sharing your story with us.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Gluten Free Unwrapped. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone in your gluten-free circle. You can connect with me, Jenny, on Instagram at GoodForYouGlutenFree, and be sure to check out my carefully curated celiac-friendly subscription boxes at lovemeglutenfree.com. I'll return next week to unwrap more inspiring stories from the people shaping the gluten-free world. Until next time, stay strong, eat well, and remember, you don't have to do this alone.